Sex workers of Reddit, have you ever fallen in love with a John? What happened afterwards? Using my throwaway. I was a sugar baby the moment I turned 18. Started having sex with a 60-year-old doctor. I was poor, so the constant showering of gifts, money, dinners, vacations, and clothes, I guess, made me fall in love with him. All I would think about was Lonnie, fake name, and what amazing thing Lonnie had planned for us that day. One day I get a call from Lonnie and he tells me we can't see each other anymore because he had caught feelings for me. I took this as my opportunity to tell him how I felt, and I really thought we would get married. He then told me, I can't be in love with a whore, so I have to let you go and move on to another girl I don't have feelings for. I was broken and depressed for a long time. I ended up using some of the money he gave me for therapy, and eventually I got over it. Good use for the money, at least. Turns out Lonnie was a fantastic doctor after all. I had to travel out of the country to attend my sister's wedding. The best man was my ex-fiance. He dumped me, so I couldn't stand the thought of going alone. So I hired an escort to go with me and pretend to be my boyfriend. But he ended up being the most wonderful man and we fell in love. Worth every penny. Never fallen in love with a client, but I do love some of them. My first ever in-person client, and favorite regular, is an absolute sweetheart and has a lot of the same kinks as I do. Seeing him has the same excitement to it as hooking up with a hot friend. We had to cancel our last session because of lockdown and I miss him a lot. Welcome to I'm not a sex worker, but town, my friend. I'm not a sex worker's butt. But it would be kinda fascinating if someone's butt had its own Reddit account. Do you consider sugar babies sex workers? Cause that would mean millions of college girls suddenly have a new career title. So much this. Met a girl in college, asked if she was single. She replied not really. I was like, what does that mean? She explained, it means he's paying for law school, and I'm not going to fuck that up. In Amsterdam I did a red light tour, and the tour guide told us how when he was young and inexperienced he shopped around the windows for a while, found the beautiful woman he'd ever seen, and kept coming back until he worked up his nerve. Eventually he went in, stayed in there talking to her until about 4 in the morning, then she took him back to her place. That was 9 years before he told us the story, and they'd been together since then. She still worked as a sex worker and he was so open about everything. It was really interesting to get such an outlook from a tour guide. Related only, but one of my friends with unlimited business expenses was hosting in clients from London. That night ended up at a strip club across the street from my home, and $1,000 in lap dance tickets, $20 each, in the middle of the table. I tried one, not my thing, so I pocketed 3 of the tickets as souvenirs. A year later, my nephew was visiting me as he turned 21, so I gave him the 3 tickets and sent him to the strip club. He did not return, but called at 8 AM. I'm making breakfast over at Dawn's place. They went out for a few months. A lap dance ticket? Like it's a fucking Disney park? Pretty much. Get the money up front, and also make the customer feel like they're not spending real money, so they'll spend even more. It's effective. I'm an online sex worker. I offer pretty much every service under the sun, and one of those is girlfriend experience. It's basically as it sounds. Plenty of texting and sexting. I really enjoy the intimacy it allows. I took on a client early in the year. A busy businessman bored from quarantine. We had very similar interests both sexually and otherwise. I found out within a week that he lived only a few hours away. After building trust for a while, he came to see me. We've been together ever since. He's completely supportive of my work, and he spends a week with me, then he'll go back home and spend a week there. We're shopping for apartments in my city now, and will likely be moving in by the 1st of December. I never could have predicted this. I've always been good at being genuine and intimate without opening up that part of myself that could consider a client a part of my real life, but there was no denying it with him. He is so good to me, and it is really enjoyable that I've never been with someone into the same kinky sexual stuff as me. Have you visited his place? Are you certain his life is what he says it is? Yep. I completely understand why you'd ask that, but yes, I've stayed with him in his home a few times. It's an unconventional fairy tale, but it's basically the 2020 version of Pretty Woman. Kidding, but seriously. My ex-boss married a sex worker. We at work and some of his friends all knew about her. He had a child with her, married and still living with her, happily. The thing that stressed him a lot was her expenses were very high. Almost every week she bought Louis Vuitton bags, expensive perfumes, and slept all day, woke up 3 to 4 p.m. He came to the point where he didn't have the money to pay our salaries, so one by one all left the company. The loan company took both of his cars, but they are still together. I can respond from the other way around. I had been prowling clubs and strip clubs every weekend. Sometimes picking up strangers and other times paying for girls to come home with me. I had gotten to a point where I had a roster of girls to choose from any day of the week. Treated them all with respect too, of course. Sometimes would just hang out and not even bang. Do the whole girlfriend thing. My only two goals were to find the hottest girl out that night and see if I could make her fall in love with me. I got pretty good at it. Eventually I began feeling shallow. The level of intimacy of my relationships were basically non-existent. None of these girls cared about me the way I wanted, and I didn't care about them that way either. I wanted someone who knew my name, birthday, favorite foods, what I like, what pisses me off. Someone to share life with. Found a real pretty girl one night during all of this and told her at the house, I want you to be my girlfriend. She laughed and didn't believe me. Been together 3 years now. She loves me, I love her. We've met each other's families, we share dreams, and this will definitely be the girl I marry and have kids with someday. Friend of mine did. She'd been sex trafficked, held against her will to work off her visa, and had her passport confiscated. He was a client of hers, and when they got close enough she told him her story and he worked with law enforcement to get her out. They've been married over a decade now. I worked as a stripper and fell in love with the manager. I saw girls always fawning over him, leaving some tips on stage so he would bring them back to the dressing room and they could flirt with him. I assumed it was a phase and tried to ignore my feelings. At the time I was suffering from chronic pain and an eating disorder. He just cared so much and went out of his way to help. We've now been married for 15 years and have 3 children. From the customer side, I was in relationship with a sex worker, one of the best of my life. We met as you would imagine, but without going into too many details, she was different and I soon became obsessed. I would see her every chance got. I was living in another country at the time, so had no real friends, and she helped me with a lot of things, getting an apartment set up and stuff like that. I hoped we were heading for more than a client-customer relationship, but did not want to jinx it. One day she did not take the money I left out, and when I pointed that out she got upset and basically told me I was an idiot for not noticing that we were now in a relationship. She was a sex worker for a few months and mainly had regular. After that it was just me and her. I loved her and I know she felt the same about me. We were together for a little over a year, and even when we broke up we stayed friends. That was over 10 years ago and we stayed in touch after. We have been on holiday together since. She has visited me at home. She has now moved back home, is running a successful business, and is getting married soon to a guy who really looks after her. I still care about her and I'm glad that she is happy.